On July 23rd, the White House published a 23-page document titled America's AI Action Plan. This document lays out a plan to win the global AI race and usher in a, quote, renaissance. I read it top to bottom twice to make sure I caught everything. This document covers a lot of ground, from sequencing the genome of all life on federal lands to getting middle schoolers excited about being HVAC technicians. But in a lot of ways, this is a rather boring and expected document. Sections are repetitively vague, not presenting much of a plan at all. This is a document with 103 bullet points, many of which could make their own video. I want to focus on the directly actionable items that carry the most potential for significant impact, as well as the strange and unexpected plans that are representative of the writer's unique positions. The document is divided into 3 pillars: innovation, infrastructure, and diplomacy and security. These all tend to mix together a bit with shared ideas between them. The innovation pillar starts by focusing on the removal of regulations and red tape. The administration appears to be searching for any regulatory hurdles to dismantle, going as far as to issue a public request for information, inviting citizens to report any regulations that are slowing down the development of AI. They also plan to review FTC investigations and orders that they believe are stifling AI innovation in any way. The next focus within the section is on free speech and American values. The plan calls for revisiting the NIST AI risk management framework to eliminate any mentions of misinformation, DEI, and climate change. As far as I can tell, climate change and misinformation are not explicitly named in the current framework, though sustainability is mentioned quite a few times throughout. Ironically, the document also states that the government must work with developers to ensure that their systems are objective and free from top-down ideological bias. For context, on July 14th it was announced that Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, and xAI were all awarded contracts with the Department of Defense. The concept of objective in this context is very dubious. The section also pushes for open source AI, essentially just asking for its development. Quote, while the decision of whether and how to release an open or closed model is fundamentally up to the developer, the federal government should create a supportive environment for open models. As you can see, this is little more than a plea. There's also a general call to make computing power more accessible to startups and academics. Increasing AI adoption is another goal, pushing towards a try-first culture. Their example of healthcare seems ill-advised, given it's a sector with extremely dire consequences if things go wrong, with people's lives and very sensitive data on the line. Regarding the workforce, the document proposes enabling employers to offer tax-free reimbursement for AI-related training. Moving on to science, the plan remains largely vague. This section also suggests incentivizing researchers to release more datasets publicly by making this a factor when reviewing researchers' proposals for new projects. Various methods for increasing access to federal data for AI training are also mentioned. Then there's a more specific suggestion. Quote, explore the creation of a whole genome sequencing program for life on federal lands, unquote, apparently including all biological domains. The reason given is for training future biological foundation models. This is a bit more interesting than the rest of the document. This seems like trying to find any way to use federal lands to procure more data for training AI models. To address the issue of AI interpretability, this plan suggests an AI hackathon initiative to, quote, solicit the best and brightest from US academia. You can tell this document is coming from a weird place by the solution for such an issue being a hackathon. Some vague ideas about government standards for AI evaluations and giving all federal employees access to LLMs are also mentioned, but this pillar is concluded with the suggestion of actions against deepfakes and the use of AI evidence in the legal system. This was all supposed to fit under the innovation pillar. It's a vague enough term that maybe it works. The next pillar is infrastructure, which begins by suggesting the creation of exemptions and expedited permits for data centers, even making federal lands available for the construction of data centers and their power infrastructure. For all of these new build-outs, they will supposedly, quote, ensure that the domestic AI computing stack is built on American products, unquote. Depending on what they mean by American products, this can seem pretty ridiculous. TSMC literally has Taiwan in their name. There's vague gesturing towards bringing more semiconductor manufacturing to the US without addressing any of the actual roadblocks. The TSMC plant in Arizona has run into many issues, one of which being American employees not matching the dedication and work culture expected by the Taiwanese company. Netherlands-based ASML is the sole supplier for EUV lithography machines required for most cutting-edge chips. This section then broadly calls for stabilizing and optimizing the power grid, without outlining any specific plans to achieve these actions. This section also addresses the workforce around AI infrastructure, specifically focusing on electricians and HVAC technicians. It proposes to, quote, expand early career exposure programs and pre-apprenticeships that engage middle and high school students in priority AI infrastructure occupations. These efforts should focus on creating awareness and excitement about these jobs. One has to wonder how many of these jobs will actually exist. Once a data center is built, how many HVAC technicians are actually required for maintenance? They would likely be contractors rather than being employed directly by the data center. Finally, we come to the third pillar, diplomacy and security. The diplomacy and security pillar essentially boils down to an ambition for the global community to become reliant on American AI rather than Chinese AI. This involves aggressively exporting American AI models, which is part of the reason for the open source push. Geofencing of GPUs is also suggested. The emphasis here seems to be more on concerns about foreign influence through AI than on domestic AI safety. AI safety in general seems to be severely neglected in this plan, focusing on incorporating AI into the response to incidents, as opposed to addressing incidents that may originate from AI. Throughout the document, a consistent theme is the reversal of Biden-era policies and the prominent inclusion of American values. The plan frequently gets stuck in a battle between advocating for strong federal action and respecting state and individual rights. For example, quote, the federal government should not allow AI-related federal funding to be directed towards states with burdensome AI regulations that waste these funds, but should also not interfere with states' rights to pass prudent laws that are not unduly restrictive to innovation. Many sentences like this one are present throughout the plan. Overall, I'm unsure of how much of this plan will actually come true, but it was a very interesting read.